Welcome, geometry students, to class today on Tuesday the 1st, April 1st. Hope you guys are doing well today. Hope you're ready to learn some math. I hope you don't fall for too many April Fool's jokes today, so make sure that you're a little a little cautious there. Okay, well, let's see what we got going on here. No tests or quizzes this week, and so that is good news for you guys. We'll probably have a quiz next week, early in the week, I believe. Maybe a test next week. Maybe, we'll see. Turn in your homework from yesterday. Now you say, well, Mr. Earhart, you told us we didn't have any homework, and you're right, but I did tell you that you were going to turn all of your notes in from yesterday's video, and I told you I was going to check those very meticulously and make sure that you have everything in there. So please go ahead and right now get out your assignment that you're supposed to turn in from yesterday and turn that in. And then, of course, Jay said, don't forget about your test by Friday. Test by Friday, or there will be points taken off every day that it's late. And that's Chapter 9, okay? Chapter 9 test. All right? Well, guys, let's have a great class period today. Get out your notebooks, pens, pencils, calculators, books, and let's really get back to work here, okay? Yesterday was a really nice review of the three lessons we had covered, 10.1, 10.2, and 10.3, and now we're going to jump right into some new material. We're going to start studying something called sine, cosine, and tangent, okay? Now we're going to spend about 4 days on these three trigonometry functions, okay? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're going to spend 2 days on lesson 10.5 and 2 days on lesson 10.4, okay? And we are going to go out of order a little bit. I think we're going to do half of 10.5 today, then half of 10.4 on Wednesday, then half of 10.4 on Thursday, then the rest of 10.5 on Friday. I'm pretty sure that's how we're going to do it, okay? But we're starting to look at sine, cosine, and tangent. Now, the three abbreviations that are used for sine, cosine, and tangent are right here. And even though it looks like sin and cos, it's not. You pronounce this sine, long I. You pronounce this cosine. You don't say just cos. It's cosine. And this is tangent, short A, tangent. So please get very used to these abbreviations. You're going to see these three abbreviations a lot. You will not see these words here very often at all, okay? So the three abbreviations for sine, cosine, and tangent are SIN, COS, and TAN. Now, today's notes will come from lesson 10.5. We will go back to lesson 10.4 tomorrow, and Thursday for that matter, and then we'll go back to lesson 10.5 on Friday, okay? So don't be worried about that, and don't think that I'm confused. We're going to jump around for some different reasons that I won't get into. Okay, now your heading today is sine and cosine. Please write that down. The lesson number is 10.5, and if you'd like to keep track of the date is April 1st, 2014, okay? Sine and cosine, lesson 10.5. Now, today, we're going to look at sine and cosine, obviously by your heading. We're going to get into tangent tomorrow. Okay, so these are called your three trigonometry functions or three trigonometric functions, and we're going to get into tangent tomorrow. The first thing that you need to understand, please listen to this, all 5 of you students, listen. The first thing that you need to understand is that sine and cosine are just simply ratios or fractions. That's it. They're two numbers like 1/2, 2/5, 6/11. Okay? Sine, cosine, and tangent of a given angle are just ratios or fractions of what? Of two sides of a right triangle. So in a little bit here, I'm going to give you some right triangles, okay? And we're going to take those right triangles, like right here. We're going to take those right triangles, and we're going to learn how to write ratios using sine, cosine, and tangent formulas, okay? So again, sine and cosine, they sound tough, they sound confusing. They're just simply ratios or fractions, okay? Here are the formulas that you need to copy down. Sine equals, now this x right here, this is an angle. I would make note of that in your notes. It's always going to be sine and then an angle, then an equal sign, and then you might have a fraction, or don't forget fractions can also be what? Decimal. So it's okay to have a decimal also. Over here with cosine, it's the exact same thing. Whenever you have the word cosine, then next you will have an angle. Now that might be a number like 52 degrees, or it might be a letter like angle A, okay? But it will be cosine, then an angle, and then over here you'll have a fraction or a decimal, okay? Now, look at these words. When I ask you to find, are you ready? When I ask you to find the sine of a given angle, you put the opposite side over the hypotenuse side. When I ask you to find the cosine of a given angle, you find the adjacent side and you find the hypotenuse side or the hypotenuse and you write them as a fraction. Now if you're sitting there wondering, Mr. Earhart, what's opposite, what's adjacent, I'm going to teach you all of that later, okay? But for right now, understand, you need to know these two formulas. You need to know them, okay? Sine of an angle equals opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine of an angle equals adjacent over hypotenuse. It's very important that you know those formulas, okay? Now let's continue on. These formulas can only be used on right triangles. Please don't forget that. These formulas right here, and tomorrow when we study tangent of a given angle, you're going to learn tomorrow the formula for tangent, and don't write this down right now, is opposite over adjacent. And tangent and cosine and sine can only be used on right triangles. Please don't forget this. These trig functions can only be used on right triangles. Let's continue on. Now, let me show you how these formulas work. So please take some really, really good notes, okay? And I hope that you're wise in class. I hope that you know that you might not need to write down something like, we're going to study this today. You might want to write this in your notes about the abbreviations. You should be able to look at what I'm putting up here and know what's important to write down and what's not. For example, these formulas are very important. I would write that down. This sentence here is very important. These formulas can only be used on right triangles. Okay, I would write that down if I were you. Now let's study, or let me show you how these formulas work. Please copy this problem in your notes. Go ahead and take a second and draw this right triangle right here. And go ahead and label it triangle ABC. And then go ahead and put your right angle symbol right here. And go ahead and label your A, B, C for your angles or your vertices. And then label your three sides, 9, 40, and 41. Now look what I want you to do. I want you to find the sine of A. Now if you'll go back in your notes and look, I showed you this is always going to be an angle. I think I erased it already, but this is going to be an angle right here. So when I say sine of A, that means sine of angle A. So since I'm trying to find the sine of angle A, I'm going to circle A. Okay? Now that I've circled A, well, Mr. Earhart, why did you circle A? Well, I'm glad that you asked. Am I finding the sine of A, the sine of B, or the sine of C? What angle is written here? Well, A is. So that's why you circle A. When you get over here in a second and we take the sine of B, we're going to uncircle this, if you will, and we're going to circle angle B. So it all depends on what angle you're dealing with. In this problem and this problem here, we're dealing with the sine of A. So we circle A. Now as soon as you circle A, whatever angle you circle, go directly across. Always do that first, please, students. Let me say that again. Whatever angle you circle, please immediately go straight across to the opposite side. What did I say? The what side? The opposite side? Exactly. You're going straight across to the opposite side, and so we call this side opposite. Okay? And by the way, these two angles here should be C. And I apologize for messing up. Should be C. So anyways, back to this problem here. So I circled angle A. I go straight across. That's opposite. Next, find your right angle. There's your right angle. So we know we're going to label this hypotenuse. Now there's only one side left, so that has to be your adjacent side. Always find the adjacent side last, okay? I would always find the opposite side first, the hypotenuse second, and then the leftover side is your adjacent side. Now, what is the formula for sine? Well, I already told you sine of a given angle is what? I'm going to put an O. Opposite over hypotenuse. So, what is the opposite side? Well, it's labeled for you right here, 40. What is the hypotenuse? 41. So you did it. You just found the sine of angle A. All that you had to know was two sides, the opposite side and the hypotenuse. That's it. Now, I want you to find the cosine of A. The cosine of A. Well, what's the formula that I gave you on the last page for cosine? Well, cosine is, if you'll look at your notes, adjacent over hypotenuse. So if I want you to find the cosine of A, go find the adjacent side, 9. Go find the hypotenuse, 41. And you did it. The cosine of A is 9 over 41. The cosine of A is 9 over 41. The sine of A is 40 over 41. Isn't that simple? It really, really is, okay? Now, we're done with cosine and sine of A. So let's erase all of this stuff here in your notes. I'm not sure how you're going to do that, but we want to move on now, because now I'm switching problems. Now I'm dealing with what angle? C. Now I want to find the sine of C and the cosine of C. So now your opposite side and your adjacent side are going to switch. Look, what angle am I dealing with? C. So I come over here and I circle what angle? C. Now what have I taught you to do? As soon as you circle that angle, go straight across to the opposite side, and we call 9 our opposite side. Next, we find our right angle. We go straight across and we call 41 our hypotenuse. And then the only side left is my adjacent side. There we go. Now let's find the sine of C. I mean, it makes sense, guys. The sine of A is not going to be the same fraction as the sine of C. It's going to be different. The sine of C is what? Well, what is your formula for sine? I don't care if it's an A right here or if it's a C. It doesn't matter. Your ratio still stays the same. The ratio for sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite over hypotenuse. So when I find the sine of C, I find the opposite side, which is 9, and I put it over the hypotenuse, which is 41. There we go. And now, cosine of C, well, what's the formula for cosine? Cosine of any given angle is adjacent over hypotenuse. So to find the cosine of C, I look for my adjacent side, that's 40, and I look for my hypotenuse, that's 41. And there we go. Not too bad. We're going to practice 1, 2 more of these, then look at calculator problems right here, and then we're finished, okay? Please copy this next problem here in your notes. Please copy this next problem in your notes. Now you can work ahead or you can watch me, that's up to you. I want us to start off by finding the sine and cosine of angle E. The sine and cosine of angle E. So what angle am I dealing with? E. So come over and circle that angle. As soon as you circle it, go straight across to the opposite side and put OPP. Next you find the 90 degrees, go straight across, and that's going to be your hypotenuse. Well, the only side left is your adjacent side. Now these three names, hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent, only work when you're dealing with what angle? E. If I was dealing with angle D, then some of these sides would change. Not all of them, but some of them, okay? So we're dealing with angle E, so here we go. The sine of E. Now what's the formula for the sine function? Well, it's opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite side is, it should be labeled for you, square root of 2, and the hypotenuse is 2. So there you go, you did it. Please don't try to reduce these numbers. One number is an inside number, it's under the radical right here, this number, and this number is an outside number. It is not inside a radical. Do not reduce them. You cannot do that. Okay, if you do, it will be wrong. Okay, it's not mathematically correct. All right, now let's find the cosine of E. Well, the cosine formula or the cosine function is adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent over hypotenuse. So the adjacent side is going to be square root of 2, and the hypotenuse will be 2. So the exact same thing. And sometimes that will happen. Now, let's come over here, and let's quickly see if we can't find the sine and cosine of angle D. So now we're dealing with angle D, right here, angle D. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to circle angle D. Now immediately go opposite, and this will be your opposite side. Find your 90 degrees. This will be your hypotenuse, and the other side will be your adjacent side. Now, let's find the sine of D. The formula for sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Well, my opposite is square root of 2. My hypotenuse is 2. So I'm going to get square root of 2 over 2. And now the cosine of D. Well, the formula for cosine, or the trig ratio, is adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent over hypotenuse. So the cosine of D would be adjacent square root of 2 over the hypotenuse 2. And there we go, we did it. Now, I would like you guys to try something on your own. I want you to go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to work this on your own. I want you to find the sine and cosine of angle I, and then I want you to find the sine and cosine of angle G. Use your notes, take your time. As soon as you're finished, then go ahead and turn the video back on and make sure your answers are correct. If you miss them, be sure and fix your mistakes. Okay, hopefully you have completed this. If not, then pause the video and go ahead and finish this. Let's go ahead and take a look at finding the sine of I and the cosine of I. So we're dealing with angle I, so I'm going to come over here and circle I. As soon as I circle I go straight across, and I'm going to call this 5 my opposite side. Then I find my 90 degrees, I go straight across. This is my hypotenuse. And then I find my other side, the only side left, and I call that my adjacent side. Now, what's the trig ratio or formula for sine? Well, it's opposite over hypotenuse. So that would be 5 over 8, because your opposite side is 5 and your hypotenuse is 8. Now let's find the cosine of I. Well, the cosine ratio is adjacent over hypotenuse. So we're going to have to find the adjacent side and the hypotenuse. All right, and the adjacent side would be square root of 39 over the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is 8. So there we go. Now let's go ahead and find the sine of angle G and the cosine of angle G. Well, if we're going to do that, we better erase all of this and start over, because we have to circle a different angle. So the sine of what angle? G. So circle G. That's the angle we're dealing with. Go straight across. We'll call this our opposite. Find your right angle. Come straight across. We'll call that your hypotenuse. And then your other side has to be your adjacent side. Now, hopefully we can go a little faster now. The sine of G, that means opposite over hypotenuse. So opposite is square root of 39 and hypotenuse is 8. So square root of 39 over 8. Now let's find the cosine of G. Well, the formula for cosine, no matter what angle you're dealing with, is adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Well, the adjacent side is 5 and the hypotenuse is 8. So there we did it. We found the sine and cosine of angle G. This is really not too difficult, students. If you'll apply yourself and work hard and really try to learn this, you can do this, okay? All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next page. Now, notice, please listen to me carefully, students. Notice that for each angle, we have not known the measurement, and we haven't. I said find the sine of angle. Well, this was actually a G, I believe, or an I. And this was a G right here. Anyways, when I asked you to find the sine of A, did we know what angle this was? Did we know that if it was 35 degrees or something? No, we did not. We did not know what that angle was, and that's okay. You don't need to know the exact angle measurement to find the sine and cosine, as long as you have a what to use. As long as you have a right triangle. Okay? Let me say that again. You do not have to know the exact angle measurement that you're taking the sine or cosine of, as long as you have the right triangle to reference, to use. However, what if you knew the angle measurement and I asked you to find the sine or cosine of that angle? Let me show you. In other words, pretend the triangle's gone. or part of it's gone anyways. There we go. Pretend the triangle's gone. All right. And I simply asked you to find something like, I don't know, the sine of 88 degrees. So now I'm giving you the actual angle measurement. How would you do that, the sine of 88 degrees? Well, it's your good old favorite tool you guys love to use. It saves time. The calculator. Okay? Now, if you're not getting out the answers that I'm about ready to show you, you might have to call me or email me, and I might have to walk you through it over the phone. But you need to make sure that your calculator is in degrees, not radians. Your calculator has to be in degrees, okay? So let me show you what we would do. Go ahead and copy these problems down and then work them out with me. Here we go. I want us to find the sine and cosine of 43 degrees, the sine and cosine of 15 degrees, and the sine and cosine of 72 degrees. Now go ahead and get your calculators out. And some calculators, you type in the hold on one second, please. Sometimes on some calculators you type in 43, then you hit sine. Some calculators you hit sine, then hit 43. Right now it is your job, Jake, Martin, Jasa, Azu, Haley, it's your job to work these out until you get the right answer. So play around with your calculator and make sure you know how to do this. Now if you have a graphing calculator like I do, you hit the word sine first and then hit 43 and then hit enter. And here's the answer you should be getting. If you're not getting this and you need to do some work, get some help on your calculator, talk to some students at Berean or one of your classmates, or you could call me or email me, okay? 0.6819 is what you should get. These are easy. All that you're doing is typing them into your calculator, okay? The cosine of 43 degrees, okay? Hit cosine and then 43 degrees, and the cosine of 43 is 0.7313537016. Now let's go ahead and find the sine of 15. If I'm going too fast, pause the video and kind of work on these and then restart the video when you're ready to. Okay, the sine of 15 degrees, if you're typing it in correctly, and go ahead and do all of these, please, you should get 0.2588190451. Now the cosine of 15. Go ahead and hit cosine, and then we're going to type in 15 and then enter. And I'm getting this, hopefully I'm typing it in correctly, 0.9659258263. Now let's find the sine of 72. So I simply hit sine and then 72 and then enter, and I get this answer right here. The sine of 72 is 0.9510565,163. Okay? And now the cosine of 72. The cosine of 72. Well, I've typed in cosine 72. I made sure my calculator has been in degrees for all of these problems, and I'm getting out 0.3090169944. Okay? So really not too difficult. So sometimes, please listen to me, sometimes you're going to find the sine and cosine of an angle by not using a calculator, but by using a right triangle. And then sometimes you'll find the sine and cosine of an angle by using your calculator. Okay? So here we go. Here's your homework assignment. Now please don't turn the video off. Listen to me. I need to tell you a couple important things. First of all, the video for this is like usual. It's geometry, homework 10.5. But this video right here that I'm circling, over and over is from last year. So please don't listen to anything that I say on that video about homework being due or a test coming up or a quiz coming up. The only thing that you're listening to this video for right here, the one I'm circling, is how to work the problems out. And I recommend you try the problems on your own and check the answers in the back of the book. But either way, however you do it, this video is from last year, the one that's circled here, so make sure you just listen to how to work the problems out, okay? If you have any questions or any comments, don't hesitate to call or email. And I hope you guys have a good day today, and I will talk to you tomorrow.